The morning fog hung heavy over the sprawling belt and road construction site, masking the rows of idle cranes and half-built bridges. Li Wei, the project's director, gripped a crumpled financial report, his knuckles white, his eyes scanning numbers that no longer made sense. How could it fall apart so quickly, he muttered, his voice barely rising above the cold wind. Workers huddled in clusters, whispers of layoffs and unpaid wages, stirring anxiety in the damp air. The ground, churned by trucks and excavators, seemed to swallow every step he took, a physical reminder of the project's sinking fortunes. His assistant, Zhang Min, approached cautiously, holding another stack of invoices, each one a nail in the coffin of Li Wei's ambitions. In that moment, the weight of responsibility collided with the stark reality. Billions invested, vanished. The project was bleeding money, trust was fraying, and the media would soon turn this quiet disaster into a public spectacle. Li Wei's reflection in a puddle mirrored a man unmoored, a leader staring into the abyss of his own hubris. By midday, Li Wei retreated to his temporary office, walls lined with charts, contracts and monitors showing real-time expenses. His phone buzzed relentlessly with calls from anxious stakeholders. The numbers screamed at him, each line a testament to miscalculations and hidden debts. Li rubbed his temples, trying to force clarity into a mind clouded with panic. "Every solution seems to sink faster than we can swim," he muttered. Zhang Min stood nearby, hands clasped, trying to offer reassurance, but knowing even she could not reverse the tide. In the corner, a map of the Belt and Road network showed the enormity of obligations stretching across continents, a visual of ambition now threatening to strangle him. Even as he reviewed emergency funding options, every decision felt heavier, morally and financially, as if the weight of billions rested squarely on his shoulders. The hum of computers, interspersed with distant construction noise, created a soundtrack of relentless tension. An urgent email arrived from a local government office, demanding immediate repayment schedules for stalled projects. Li Wei's stomach tightened. Every line of the email hinted at consequences he could not afford: halted permits, legal threats, and potential media exposure. Zhang Min leaned over, whispering, "We need a strategy before this becomes public." His mind raced through contingencies, alliances, and financial loopholes. It felt like a chessboard where every piece moved against him. He called a brief video conference with regional managers, their faces etched with worry, some trying to hide panic. Even as he spoke with measured authority, internally he felt the ground shifting beneath him, a precarious dance with time and accountability. Each decision now carried human costs: workers, families, and partners who had invested faith alongside funds. By afternoon, rumors of delayed payments had reached local news outlets. Journalists began circling, cameras capturing empty cranes and frustrated workers. Li's heart sank as he watched the footage online, a visual indictment of his leadership. Each social media post, each news clip magnified the sense of exposure. Stakeholders called, some with support, others with veiled threats. Zhang Min advised caution, yet her eyes betrayed the fear of escalating crises. Li Wei knew that public perception could ignite political pressure as swiftly as financial ruin. Even in solitude, the echo of external scrutiny loomed, transforming his office into a war room of anxiety. He felt the isolation of command, the immense weight of expectations pressing down with relentless insistence. As evening approached, Li Wei stood on the balcony, overlooking the sprawling site, now bathed in golden sunset. The cranes cast long shadows, workers leaving in silence, the hum of machinery slowing to a crawl. He exhaled, contemplating the enormity of responsibility, the debt, and the human cost. His reflection mingled with the fading light, a man both proud of achievement and haunted by looming failure. Zhang Min joined him, silent for a moment, sharing the unspoken acknowledgement of a day marked by revelation and unease. The sunset painted a world suspended between hope and despair, a metaphor for the uncertain path ahead. In that quiet, fleeting moment, Li Wei realized that the weight of ambition was inseparable from accountability, and that every towering crane now symbolized both possibility and peril. The following morning, Li Wei arrived early at the construction site, the sky painted in pale dawn hues. The air carried a sharp chill, frost clinging to steel beams. His team gathered for an emergency briefing, whispers of investor impatience and governmental scrutiny lingering like mist. Li Wei's voice broke the silence as he outlined immediate priorities, attempting calm while internally calculating losses and liabilities. Zhang Min distributed documents, her hands shaking slightly, betraying anxiety beneath her composed exterior. Distant machines rumbled to life as a few crew members began preliminary work, their movements tentative yet resolute. Li Wei glanced at the half-built bridges, their skeletal forms silhouetted against foggy hills, a physical testament to both ambition and vulnerability. Every glance reminded him that time was collapsing under mounting debts and public expectation. He inhaled sharply, realizing that even minor missteps could trigger cascading failures, jeopardizing reputations, livelihoods, and the network of projects stretching across continents. Today, more than ever, leadership demanded clarity, courage, and the ability to make impossible choices under immense pressure. By late morning, the boardroom was tense with the presence of stakeholders flown in for urgent discussions. Li Wei presented spreadsheets, cash flows, and risk assessments, but the room vibrated with skepticism. Each nod, each raised eyebrow conveyed judgment sharper than words. Zhang Min assisted with data visualization, her fingers hovering nervously over the remote as charts flickered across the screen. Legal advisors whispered about compliance issues, while investors murmured about potential exit strategies. Li Wei felt trapped in a vortex of expectation, the weight of billions pressing down, every decision scrutinized, every number dissected. Outside, the hum of machinery reminded him of the ongoing project, a physical echo of obligations unmet. He forced himself to remain composed, knowing that a display of panic could accelerate their collective anxiety into confrontation. Every passing second was a test of stamina, strategy, and survival in a world where financial missteps could cascade into catastrophe. By afternoon, news of delayed projects had spread to regional offices, and the phone calls intensified. Li Wei ducked into a quiet corner of his office, running numbers repeatedly. Every solution seemed temporary, every option fraught with risk. Zhang Min entered with updates on workforce morale. Absenteeism was rising, complaints multiplying. Li Wei knew that if the team faltered, deadlines would collapse, and public scrutiny would sharpen. Outside the window, cranes swung gently in the spring breeze, yet even their rhythm seemed menacing in its contrast to human fragility. He scribbled contingency plans, red lines, and alternate funding strategies, each more complicated than the last. Each note was a lifeline, a potential path through the storm of obligations, yet each also revealed the precarious balance of hope against an avalanche of fiscal and reputational peril. As evening approached, a sudden storm rolled over the construction site. Dark clouds blotted out the sunset, lightning reflecting off metal beams. Workers scrambled to secure equipment, wind lashing at tops and scaffolding. Li Wei and Zhang Min watched from the safety of the office, the scene outside a mirror of chaos inside their strategy. Phones rang incessantly, with emergency calls from regional managers and contractors battling waterlogged foundations. The storm's roar amplified the anxiety in the office, reminding Li Wei of forces beyond control. He noted every problem, mentally preparing for rapid deployment of resources once the weather subsided. Every action required precision. Hesitation could compound disaster. Amid the chaos, the bond between Li Wei and Zhang Min strengthened, their shared focus cutting through fear as they plotted their next moves. Night fell with relentless rain, turning the construction site into a mirror of dark puddles and flickering lights. Li Wei and Zhang Min remained in the office, monitoring live feeds and weather updates. Exhaustion weighed heavily, yet neither could leave the responsibility of safeguarding workers, equipment, and finances, anchoring them in place. Each message of flooding, delays, or structural hazards tightened the knot in Li Wei's chest. Zhang Min suggested temporary reassignments, emergency teams, and risk mitigation measures. He nodded, feeling both gratitude and burden, recognizing that leadership demanded endurance beyond physical stamina. Outside, water streamed across muddy trenches, cranes swayed against the storm, and distant thunder punctuated the night, a symphony of tension underscoring the enormity of choices yet to come. Their eyes met, a silent acknowledgement that survival required unity, foresight, and courage under relentless pressure. Morning broke over Shanghai with a misty haze, the city's skyline half hidden in fog. Li Wei arrived at the financial district office, emails and messages awaiting like ambushes. One flagged a delayed payment from a key partner, threatening a domino effect across multiple projects. His phone buzzed with Zhang Min's updates. Rumors of embezzlement were surfacing in whispers, amplified by anxious staff. Li Wei clenched his jaw, realizing that threats weren't only external. Trust once assumed now seemed fragile. He dialed his confidant, Chen Yu, seeking insight into the murky financial networks underpinning their operations. Each revelation twisted like a knife: contracts manipulated, misreported expenses, hidden liabilities that nobody had disclosed. The world he had built on meticulous planning suddenly felt like a house of cards. A sense of urgency propelled him forward, every choice carrying moral and financial consequences that would ripple far beyond the immediate losses. By mid-morning, Li Wei convened an emergency strategy meeting in the boardroom, the tension palpable. Stakeholders whispered behind furrowed brows, each email and document now a weapon of suspicion. Zhang Min placed a stack of invoices on the polished table, pointing out discrepancies that suggested internal manipulation. Li Wei's gaze swept the room, landing briefly on senior manager Gao Lin, whose posture had stiffened unnaturally. Questions hung in the air, unanswered, yet pregnant with implication. Li Wei said, "We cannot afford mistakes. I need full transparency, now." Silence followed, punctuated only by the hum of the air conditioning. Each person present weighed loyalty against fear, ambition against integrity. Outside, traffic roared along the boulevard, a reminder that the city moved regardless of their internal turmoil. Li Wei felt the gnawing certainty: betrayal wasn't just a rumor, it was real, and it was closer than he imagined. By early afternoon, evidence of financial tampering emerged. Li Wei examined spreadsheets revealing payments diverted to shell accounts, some traced back to trusted partners. His stomach tightened as betrayal crystallized. Zhang Min's voice quivered slightly as she summarized findings, her meticulousness masking growing fear. Li Wei's mind raced. Each red flag pointed to a network operating beneath the surface, invisible until now. Legal consequences, project delays, reputational damage, all collided in a single mental tableau. He realized survival required more than strategy. It demanded confrontation and courage, confronting allies and adversaries alike. With a deep breath, he began mapping out meetings with implicated personnel, preparing for explanations that could redefine alliances. Outside, the sun broke briefly through clouds, illuminating skyscrapers like a spotlight on their precarious position. Late afternoon brought confrontation. Li Wei summoned Gao Lin to a private office, the atmosphere charged with unspoken accusation. Gao Lin's composed exterior cracked under scrutiny, the slightest hesitation betraying guilt. Li Wei said, "We both know the numbers don't lie. Explain yourself." Gao Lin faltered, then attempted deflection, but every word only deepened the chasm of mistrust. Li Wei's pulse raced, aware that this confrontation could determine not just the fate of the company, but the lives tethered to its projects. He realized that betrayal had tangible costs. Employees, contractors, and communities relied on decisions made in moments like this. The room seemed smaller, walls closing in with the weight of accountability and the electric charge of human deceit. Li Wei absorbed the gravity of the moment, forcing both men to confront the intersection of ambition and ethics. Night fell like a heavy curtain, the city outside glowing in artificial light. Li Wei returned to his office, the weight of betrayal pressing upon him. Jiang Min sat silently, offering support yet sharing the silent terror of what lay ahead. He reviewed contingency plans, legal strategies, and potential communications, knowing that each step could escalate or contain the crisis. Even as fatigue threatened, he focused on the human cost. Employees depending on wages, contractors on trust, families on stability. Decisions became moral and financial crucibles, each choice revealing both courage and vulnerability. The city hummed outside, indifferent to their turmoil, while inside, the tension transformed into resolve. Li Wei understood the battlefield wasn't only spreadsheets and contracts. It was loyalty, judgment, and the courage to confront darkness in the very heart of ambition. Morning sunlight pierced the glass walls of Li Wei's high-rise office, but clarity felt distant. News of financial discrepancies had leaked to media outlets, painting the company in suspicion. Stock prices wavered, clients hesitated, and even loyal employees questioned their footing. Li Wei paced, phone pressed to his ear, listening to legal counsel outline potential investigations. Every word tightened the knot in his chest. He muttered to himself, "This isn't just numbers. Lives are at stake." Outside, traffic surged like a living pulse, indifferent to his turmoil. Each message on his screen became a reminder that in the world of finance, trust could be weaponized and reputation destroyed in a heartbeat. Li Wei realized that preventing further collapse demanded courage, strategic insight, and the ability to act decisively, even as the ground shifted beneath him. By late morning, Li Wei convened a crisis meeting with senior executives. Tension was thick enough to slice through the air. Jiang Min opened a confidential report showing deeper embezzlement traces than previously imagined, implicating multiple departments. Li Wei said, "We need immediate internal audits, no exceptions. Full accountability." His voice carried authority tempered by desperation. Questions flew. Who else knew? How far did this network extend? The executives exchanged anxious glances, some protective of colleagues, others plotting self-preservation. Li Wei's stomach churned. The realization hit that the company's foundation was shakier than anyone admitted. Decisions now weren't just about profit. They were moral imperatives, determining careers, livelihoods, and the credibility of everything he had built. Afternoon brought confrontation beyond the office walls. Li Wei met with Gao Lin in a discreet downtown cafe, the chatter of unsuspecting patrons contrasting with the tension at their table. Li Wei's voice was steady, but each question cut deeper. "Was this your decision, or are you a pawn?" Gao Lin avoided eye contact, his fingers drumming nervously on the table. Li Wei realized betrayal extended further than he imagined. Partners he once trusted were now shadows moving in a web of self-interest. Each sip of coffee became a pause for reflection, each glance a calculation. Outside, the city moved with relentless speed, unaware of the moral and financial storm brewing within one small corner of it. Li Wei knew choices made in these moments would ripple far beyond the office or the cafe, affecting everyone connected to the projects he managed. Evening descended. As Li Wei returned to headquarters, city lights casting long shadows across the lobby. Reports stacked high on his desk demanded immediate attention, and every decision felt like a life-or-death gamble. His confidant, Chen Yu, advised caution, warning that external audits and regulatory investigations could spiral uncontrollably. Li Wei's mind raced through possible outcomes: layoffs, bankruptcies, public scandal. Every option carried human and financial consequences, each more daunting than the last. He leaned back in his chair, rubbing his temples, understanding that ambition now collided with vulnerability. One wrong move could topple not only the company, but the people who depended on it for security and stability. The glow of city lights outside mirrored the flicker of uncertainty and resolve in his own mind. Night fell fully, and Li Wei sat alone in the executive lounge, the hum of distant traffic blending with the occasional click of a keyboard. His mind replayed betrayals and decisions, weighing consequences against ambition. He drafted a strategy for containment, a mixture of transparency, accountability, and damage control. Jiang Min quietly joined, bringing coffee and solidarity and shared exhaustion. Levi realized that leadership now meant shouldering both financial and human responsibility, balancing the company's survival against ethical imperatives. Outside, the city slept unaware, but inside, a storm of strategy, betrayal, and resilience continued to rage. Levi's hands hovered over the keyboard, knowing that each keystroke could rewrite the narrative of his company, his life, and the fate of all who relied on him. Levi arrived at the corporate archives, a cold, dimly lit basement filled with dusty ledgers and forgotten files. Every step echoed, amplifying the tension. Chen Yu, nervously holding a USB drive, whispered, "You need to see this before anyone else does." Levi connected the drive to his laptop, watching as encrypted documents decrypted to reveal transactions, offshore accounts, and shadow agreements. His pulse quickened. This wasn't just internal embezzlement. Someone had orchestrated the entire collapse, manipulating stock markets, falsifying audits, and quietly siphoning funds. Lewi's mind raced, connecting faces, names, and missed warning signs. Betrayal was personal, targeted, and calculated. His voice trembled as he muttered, "It's him, Gao Lin." Reality hit like a hammer. The person he once trusted above all had been plotting his downfall for months. Armed with evidence, Li Wei confronted Gao Lin in a private conference room, city skyline glittering in the background. "You knew," Li Wei said, voice edged with fury, "and you watched us crumble for your gain." Gao Lin's mask of calm faltered. He smirked. "Business is chess, Li Wei. You were a pawn long before you realized it." Li Wei's stomach sank, but his mind sharpened. This wasn't just revenge, it was strategy. Every misstep he'd made, every trust extended blindly, had been exploited. Rage mixed with clarity, he saw the path forward, not just for retaliation, but for reclaiming control. Each word exchanged was loaded with financial stakes, personal consequences, and the moral weight of justice versus ambition. Levi retreated to his office alone, replaying each manipulated decision in his mind. Every board approval, every investment, every partnership suddenly carried a hidden meaning. He began mapping connections, noting accomplices, potential allies, and weak points. The enormity of the conspiracy pressed down, but a spark of determination flared. Understanding the structure gave him the power to act. Jiang Min returned, silently offering support. Together, they charted a plan to contain damage, expose the betrayal, and secure the company. Levi's voice was steady now, resolute. "We'll turn this around, but it has to be surgical, precise, and untraceable until the right moment." The night deepened, but so did his resolve, transforming fear into strategy. Early morning, Levi visited the company's main trading floor. Empty, silent, a ghost of bustling activity. He imagined the chaos if the wrong person learned of the evidence too soon. Every screen, every terminal, every historical ledger represented potential exposure. Levi whispered to himself, "Control the narrative, control the fallout." He walked between rows of terminals, envisioning the moves to protect employees, clients, and investors, while plotting how to trap Zhao Lin without alerting him. It was a dangerous balance of ethical responsibility and tactical deception. A single miscalculation could destroy everything, but Li Wei's determination burned brighter than fear. The first step of the counterattack had begun. By late morning, Levi had called an emergency board meeting. Executives gathered, tension nearly palpable. Levi stood, documents ready, his voice calm yet commanding. "Evidence confirms orchestrated sabotage. Zhao Lin manipulated internal audits and external reporting. We act now, surgical, precise, and in the company's best interest." Shock and murmurs filled the room, but clarity came gradually. Allies leaned in, emboldened by his leadership, while those complicit in betrayal recoiled. Levi realized that exposing the truth was only half the battle. The other half required protecting the innocent, securing the company's legacy, and reclaiming agency. This was the pivot, the twist that would determine who survived, financially and morally, in the unfolding storm. Li Wei arrived at Zhao Lin's penthouse, the city skyline a glittering, indifferent witness to his resolve. Zhao Lin opened the door, smiling faintly, feigning surprise. "Li Wei, you've come far," he said. Li Wei's gaze hardened, the weight of betrayal settling in his chest. "This ends tonight," he replied, stepping inside. The room was opulent, every detail a reminder of the empire Zhao Lin had built while secretly dismantling Li Wei's. Shadows from the city lights fell across the marble floors, reflecting tension and moral gravity. Li Wei's mind raced. Every word, every step had to be precise. The confrontation was not only financial, it was personal, a reckoning of pride, power, and trust. Li Wei laid out the evidence on a sleek glass table: offshore accounts, falsified audits, and manipulated investments. Zhao Lin leaned back, smirk fading, eyes calculating. "You really thought you could outmaneuver me," he said. Li Wei's voice was icy. "I didn't just think, I prepared." Each accusation was a strike, each revelation a precision blow. Zhao Lin's carefully constructed facade began to crack. The tension thickened. The air between them felt like electricity, charged with years of deceit, ambition, and the unrelenting pursuit of dominance. Every financial maneuver, every whispered betrayal, now had human faces and moral weight. Zhao Lin attempted a counterattack, manipulating numbers and threats with calm precision, but Li Wei anticipated every move. "Every transaction, every partner, every misstep. You counted on my ignorance," Li said, voice sharp. Zhao Lin's composure faltered, his arrogance cracking under scrutiny. Li Wei leaned in. "I trusted you." That trust nearly cost everything. A silence followed, heavy with history and unresolved emotion. The battle was no longer abstract financial warfare. It was a collision of egos, of human frailty and ambition. Li Wei's strategy was surgical, his resolve unshakable. This was a final reckoning. Li Wei executed his plan, exposing Zhao Lin's actions to the company's board and law enforcement simultaneously. Zhao Lin's face turned pale as messages and alerts arrived on his devices. You knew how to play the game," he whispered, realization dawning. Li Wei's voice was calm, authoritative. "I didn't just play. I ended it." The city lights outside reflected in their eyes, framing the moment of finality. Years of deception, ambition, and greed culminated in this instant, where power shifted and consequences struck without mercy. Li Wei's hands trembled slightly, not from fear, but from the weight of justice delivered. After Zhao Lin's fall, Li Wei stood on the penthouse balcony, gazing at the sprawling city below. The adrenaline had faded, exhaustion and clarity remained. Zhang Min joined him silently. "It's over," she said softly. Li Wei exhaled. "For now. But everything we rebuild will be stronger, wiser, and fairer." The skyline reflected hope and consequence alike. This was victory tempered with cost. Trust shattered, lives altered, and legacies rewritten. Li Wei realized that ambition without vigilance was dangerous, but courage coupled with integrity could redefine what it meant to lead. He tightened his coat, resolved to rebuild not just wealth, but honor, as dawn broke across the city. Li Wei returned to his office, the silence deafening. Files, once symbols of ambition and chaos, now lay untouched. Zhang Min sorted through documents, her fingers trembling slightly as she catalogued the aftermath. Li Wei sat behind the desk, head in hands, recalling the sacrifices and betrayals that led here. "We have survived, but at what cost?" he murmured. The financial empire remained, but fractured relationships and ethical scars lingered. Every decision had left a mark, shaping the future differently than any plan or projection. Li Wei knew rebuilding would demand vigilance, humility, and patience. The weight of leadership was no longer abstract, it was tangible, relentless, and deeply personal. Li Wei walked through the company floor, once buzzing with activity, now subdued and tense. Employees glanced up, cautious and curious. Li Wei stopped, addressing a small group. "We rebuild, but we rebuild differently. Integrity guides us now." Whispers spread, some hopeful, others doubtful. The human cost of ambition weighed on every face. Levi noticed the collateral damage: careers disrupted, families stressed, and trust shattered. Yet, he also saw resilience and determination. The lesson was hard-earned. Financial success without ethical grounding carried consequences far beyond numbers. Leadership was no longer about dominance, it was about responsibility, stewardship, and foresight. In a quiet cafe later that day, Levi met with his heir, Lin Tao, a young, ambitious analyst of 28. "You'll inherit more than spreadsheets," Levi said, voice heavy with caution and wisdom. Lin Tao nodded, absorbing the weight of past mistakes and lessons. The conversation wasn't about wealth alone. It was about ethics, vigilance, and human impact. Levi reflected on the betrayals he endured, the risks taken, and the fragile nature of trust. Lin Tao's gaze was sharp but tempered with curiosity. Li realized legacy was not the empire itself, but the values and prudence passed on to those who follow. The city outside shimmered, a reminder of both possibility and peril. Li walked alone, along the riverbank, as dusk settled. The water reflected golden city lights, calm, yet ever-shifting. Memories of past decisions, victories and losses flowed through him. Zhang Min joined silently, offering support rather than counsel. "We did what we had to," she said softly. Li Wei nodded, feeling the duality of relief and loss. He understood that rebuilding would be a slow, deliberate process. Financial success was fragile, but character and integrity could endure. The night embraced them quietly, a mirror of both reflection and hope. Levi exhaled, resolved to proceed with care, conscience intact, and wisdom gained through fire. Levi stood at his apartment balcony, night fully descended, the city sprawling endlessly beneath him. He held a letter from the board confirming the company's stability. Yet, the victories felt bittersweet. "We survived. We learned," he whispered. The skyline shimmered, alive with possibilities and unknown challenges. A single streetlight flickered far below, a symbol of endurance amidst uncertainty. Lai realized that endings were rarely absolute. Life and finance were ongoing, a series of calculated steps, human choices, and moral dilemmas. With resolve he turned inside, ready to rebuild, guided by lessons etched deeply into his conscience.